Welcome to How It Works. This is Bob Ambrogi, and on today's episode, a demonstration of Hercules AI and its AI-powered billing compliance platform. Joining me to tell us all about it and show us how it works is Mariam Hambarchyan, Director of Product Management. Mariam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Before we get into the demo, why don't you give us a little bit of a background on Hercules AI and your platform?
Let's kick it off. To put it simply, our goal with the billing compliance platform is to help law firms protect profits and streamline their work to cash cycle, while also unburdening partners to focus on higher quality and higher value work. The issue is actually top of mind for a lot of law firms today in particular, because as the growing demand for e-billing has unfortunately increased, it has also resulted in higher deduction rates. Some reports show that as much as 10% increase has been seen in the last couple of years, year over year. And frankly, when you think about compliance, the different rules that partners have to follow, and sometimes conflicting OCG rules, it's nearly impossible for them to do this manually during pre-bill review. This cumbersome process, coupled with the lagging adoption of paperless billing tools, causes a lot of delays in the billing cycle, which also negatively impact the firm's finances. So what we do is embed real-time compliance checks during the pre-bill review process, as well as earlier with the work in progress, or WIP review, as some call it. This prevents revenue leakage, accelerates billing by shortening both time to bill as well as time to collect, and it reduces the partner workload in general. Our platform integrates seamlessly with the leading finance systems such as Elite 3E and Adherent Expert, and really most importantly, it's deployed either in private cloud or on-prem, all within the firm's security perimeter. We all know with AI, security is one of the top concerns for most firms. At a high level, the platform uses an assembly of large language models, not just one, to extract, classify, and enforce billing rules. And these rules could come from outside counsel guidelines as well as internal guidelines. It also enforces custom rules and those trained on historical deductions to ensure that we have an end-to-end compliance, as well as adherence to the firm's own standards and partner preferences. What our users love the most is actually that Hercules goes beyond rule enforcement. What I mean by this is that AI serves as a coach that gives suggestions to fix non-compliant entries with one click in many cases. And lastly, the flexible workflows that we have allow firms to shift to review that is predominantly done by partners today toward the earlier intervention I mentioned, involving a combination of other types of users, such as timekeepers, legal assistants, and even billing teams.
Yeah, I know that adherence to outside counsel guidelines is a real pain point for many firms, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how this works. So why don't we launch into it and you can walk us through it?
Awesome. Let's get started. We'll begin our journey in the rule library to demonstrate AI-powered guideline management. And as we open the guideline library, I want to actually begin by saying that the guidelines and the rule library are managed by the billing team. Of course, attorneys can come in here and see the rules, but this is off limits in terms of any modification they can do. So it serves as a centralized repository for guidelines and rules, and the system is designed to ingest and extract data from two different types of documents: the OCGs that you were just mentioning, Bob, as well as internal guidelines. Let's get started by ingesting a couple of OCGs into the system, and I'll go ahead and load them up. They're quickly uploaded. At this stage, I can choose to map them, and we'll go ahead and map this to a mirror. You can also map it later, so we'll just say done. And now AI is beginning its work to extract all of the rules, and I'll show you in just a minute what those rules look like. But now let's talk about this internal guideline concept. What do we even mean by that? Firms have all kinds of other sources for rules besides OCGs. When you just talk about outside counsel guidelines, you're missing a whole plethora of other rules that are really important to enforce. This could be firm-wide time entry standards. It could also be client or matter-specific guidelines that the billing team has created. And they often create this to supplement or augment OCGs, because not everything is written explicitly in an OCG. So it could be things like what you're seeing here, terminology to avoid or terminology to use. We even see partner-specific guidelines being uploaded. And what this really covers are linguistic preferences partners might have to better convey value on a bill. And if you think about it, a lot of times these kinds of edits are what partners are doing every month in order to fix line items written by more junior timekeepers like associates or paralegals. And the bulk of these edits take up a significant amount of their time. In summary, the client guidelines are really important, as well as adherence to standards that the firm has and preferences attorneys have. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, we'll shift to the rules in the library.
No, I don't have any questions up until this point.
Okay, perfect. This is where all the magic that AI has done starts populating by itself. So no one is starting to build a library from scratch, one rule at a time, but instead the dozen or so guidelines you saw over there have already been populated, and I can see the rules and I can begin to work on them. The robustness of the library ensures that billing teams have complete flexibility as well as granular control. And I'll walk you through the library in terms of the different actions that someone in billing can take. One of the first things is how you visualize the table of rules. I can look at it from a perspective of payers. This is really relevant for insurance defense firms. I can look at it from a perspective of my clients, and these are different clients, and with each of them, you see different sets of rules, as well as I can look at it in terms of matters. And I can see all the rules that apply to my matters. And guidelines could be mapped to any of these levels as well. And one really important piece of value that Hercules provides is granular flexibility. So let's take this client, for example, and I can choose to go in here and say, well, for this matter, let's not have block billing disabled. It's okay to block bill. We have an agreement. But that doesn't mean that this rule is now turned off for all other matters for that client. I can still have it partially on and have this granular control for handling any exceptions. I also have the flexibility to turn any rules on and off and to do this in fast bulk actions, and just a lot of flexibility, as I mentioned, built into it. Something we began to touch on, and as I move over to all my rules, we'll begin to see are the different sources of rules. OCGs, we talked about. Internal guidelines, we talked about. But what are these other two? So common practice rules are essentially rules where we have an AI model, a proprietary AI model that's been trained on historical data to detect all of these types of issues. These are very familiar names if you know the deductions that clients give you, whether it's vague narrative, this is paralegal work, these are overhead, internal communication, and so on. They come built in as default rules in the library, and you have the flexibility to decide for which clients matters and so on to enforce them. The other types of rules that are really important are custom rules, because billing teams might still opt to have ad hoc rules they want to create. And these custom rules are super easy to create, Bob. One of the things that pains me to see is any rule library that's currently being used in production from other solutions require billing teams to use a really cumbersome user interface and set up if-then logic that ends up in warnings or errors. In this case, we can set up a really quick internal rule and say, for example, abbreviation of names, and say something along the lines of abbreviate names and narratives with first initial and last name only. Example, and I can say this is for a very specific matter, let's just say, and go ahead and enforce it. And that rule is magically created and enforced without additional effort from the billing team. So as the library is curated, all of these things are saved, and the billing team can decide to publish changes, which will trigger the enforcement of these rules either right now, or they can schedule it for later enforcement. To sum up, the flexibility and powerful intelligence built into the rule library is what differentiates Hercules AI from other billing solutions. And we can also go a little bit deeper into this topic if you'd like, and look at how to view rules, edit them, and so on.
Yeah, just a quick question on you mentioned the AI generated set of rules there that are looking back at a history of common errors and how they're resolved. Is that looking across the history with respect to a particular client or a particular firm or across everything that you have in your system?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Bob. So our models have been trained on really clean data because the quality of AI output is the quality of data that goes into it. They've been trained on a vast amount of data and clean data. So they're not specifically trained on your firm's data, but they come built in. One of the beautiful things that we still incorporate, however, is ongoing feedback. As we'll go into the review process, you'll notice that as rules are dismissed, you might either take that as, hey, maybe this rule shouldn't have been applied for this client. This client is more lenient with vague narratives, and maybe we shouldn't have applied it. But in other situations, it could be feedback that helps us improve these models, and we continuously and iteratively release versions that continue to expand the scope or add additional models. For example, recently we added something for duplicate effort, not just duplicate entry, and that really goes into much deeper when two different timekeepers are working on something very similar and you have to justify the second entry and so on. So let's pick a topic that everyone loves, research, and what's allowed and what's not allowed. I can also search here and really pick all of my time entry rules around research. So as you can see, I can find anything I want in here with all of my filters and search. And if a billing team member wanted to go deeper into this rule, here's what they would see. They see the guideline, they see the extraction, they get to see exactly what the rule classifications or types are. If there's any need, they can obviously change it or modify it. But actually, AI did a really incredible job here. It flagged it as a legal or factual research rule, and also noted that this has a time limit or duration element associated with it, such that excessive legal research more than 3 hours is non-billable without prior approval. I have ability to modify any of these things as a billing team member. Let's say I want the rule to be called just excessive research. This is great, but I can add more information to it if I really wanted to. I'm also seeing the attributes. I'm seeing the sources of the rule and exactly where it's enforced. I have the ability to remove and save my changes and so on. So none of the rules, even the ones that AI extracts, are static. They're malleable, and the billing team has complete flexibility to revise them and modify them and decide what's on at what level.
Would there ever be a situation where somebody other than on the billing team would be involved in revising or editing those rules, like one of the lawyers involved in a particular matter?
No, we are planning on giving attorneys the ability to suggest a rule, and then we'll stop there, right?
Okay, good.
Because you'll find situations where an attorney does not want to, for example, add page numbers to really lengthy time entry. But we all know from historical data and deductions from the rules that giving a volume indicator is a really important way to justify the duration for that entry. So what you'll end up seeing happening is an attorney might say, well, I don't want this rule, but the billing team now still has control to say, look, it's really in our best interest as a firm and for you as a timekeeper to improve your realization rates by keeping this rule on. So there's some negotiation that happens on rule enforcement, and sometimes billing teams will make exceptions for certain timekeepers and turn off certain rules despite the fact that they should be enforced. So really the beautiful part is whether it's in an OCG, whether the billing team thought it was a great rule to create, or it came from some internal guideline, there is flexibility to decide what is enforced at the granular matter level. So you're never sacrificing that fidelity of this rule should be on for the client, but we're going to make an exception here.
Thanks. Thanks for that clarification.
Awesome. So let's go ahead into the next phase, which is the workflows that you wanted to touch on. I love starting with the rule library, Bob, because it is the essence, right? It's the heart of what's being enforced. It's how the sausage is made, and it's really important for us to get that perspective first. And now, even before I go into how the rules are enforced, I'd love to take a moment to share with you how we support our clients in their different strategies for having workflows in the solution in the platform. And really, the essence of the strategy is how do we distribute the compliance load? Currently, Most of this heavy load and burden is carried by billing partners, billing timekeepers, which are predominantly partners. And there is a plethora of other strategies you can deploy here in order to minimize their workload and actually enable a lot of other folks to get involved in an efficient way. So one thing we know about the billing cycle generally is timekeepers are entering time throughout a 30-day period, let's say. And if you're on a monthly billing cadence, at the beginning of the month, pre-bills are generated, the review happens. Hopefully by the end of that month, you're sending that bill out. And that's the traditional workflow. Why is it that we wait until pre-bill generation to begin compliance checks, right? That's the question we posed ourselves. All paperless billing solutions focus on the pre-bill review stage, and that's great, but we can intervene and we should intervene much earlier. And this is where this work in progress or WIP review comes in. In other words, these are submitted time entries. So we didn't intervene with people at 11:30 p.m. when they're trying to get their time in. No impact on time velocity. The time is entered. It's in the finance system, be it Elite or Adderant Expert. Hercules fetches that data using the API integration, and that appears here. Now let's talk about who might be doing this time entry or WIP review. Essentially, we see three different clusters of users emerge. This could be individual timekeepers, associates, paralegals, junior partners, and so on. This could include legal assistants who have delegated access and can participate, at least in part, to address compliance issues. We're also seeing some firms deploy a laser-targeted group of compliance experts within their billing team as a centralized means of doing this review. Sometimes we observe legal assistants and billing team members also helping with the pre-bill review or offering white glove service to certain partners. But really, the engagement begins in this early WIP review. What you're seeing here are, 16 clients. I have a total of 70 matters that I'm working with in this data. And I have really quick visibility into the number of problems here. I can even sort by the number of AI issues. I can sort by any other means. And let's take an easy one. Let's go here with just 5 issues. So here's the experience, for example, from an associate's perspective. I'm in here, I have a bunch of entries, but really I'm focused on these 5 because I don't need to go through all of my time entries, and I can focus my attention on the ones AI has flagged. I can see all of the compliance issues at a glance, or I can just begin to address them one by one. If something is highlighted in red, Bob, that's a signal something is wrong. So in this case, I can quickly click apply, but before I do that, let's unpack what else I have access to. So I see the rule. This is the name of the rule that the billing team could have modified. I see the summary of the rule. It's a very simple internal rule in this case. It says replace the term review and analyze with assess. Maybe this is a stylistic thing. Maybe it's a partner thing. It could be a firm-wide decision that we don't use 2 verbs. We use a single verb. And what you're also seeing in this case is not complex reasoning, but nonetheless AI reasoning for why this change should take place. All a timekeeper or a legal assistant would have to do is click apply, and AI has already fixed that. They can always undo it if they wish, and that is already applied. Here's another one. The word meeting, attend meeting. Let's change it to participate in a meeting. What you're seeing here is it's already filled in, right? I can continue to modify this, but it's so perfect. I'm just going to go ahead and apply it. Let's take a look. This is a bit more complex. What's going on? Some kind of medical records were reviewed, and you can always even go as far as to open the rule citation. You're seeing the billing person logged in here, so I get to control this rule. Attorneys would just not have those buttons active, but what they're really reading is this is medical records review, and it's not billable unless I have some prior approval or prior agreement for it. Let's go back to here. And what AI has done for me, it has provided the reasoning and what's wrong. It's also already filled in the missing piece that is my responsibility as a timekeeper, as a legal assistant to fix. So I can say this is approved by Ben. then I can go ahead and apply it, and this change is made in the narrative directly. We'll wrap up here. Here's another one. Now it's 2 issues. You could definitely have more than one problem with an entry. So in this case, you're seeing 2 issues. They're both about motions and prior approval being required. And this is going to ask for this, and this is approved by Bob. And we'll go ahead and fix it. I do also want to say, let's say in this case, you disagree. You don't want to replace review and analyze. AI is not mandating anything. It's a coach. It's a rather friendly coach. You have the option to dismiss, and it's highlighted in gray. So if you change your mind, you can undo it. You can provide a reason. Client is okay with this, and go ahead and let the system know. And over time, we and the firm evaluate these dismiss reasons and understand what to do. Should we adjust the rules? Should we improve a certain enforcement? Is there a mistake? And so on. When I'm finished, it's as easy as clicking send to billing. And this is writing all those changes back into the finance system. As you can tell, there is no data entry. There's no manual workload created for anyone to make these changes for me. Let's take a look at a few other more complex situations. And in this case, I'll leverage in here and see what else we have. So block billing. It's a pain to manually split things up. AI detects it. I can review it. What it's done for me is manually split the duration in half. Maybe I don't want half. Maybe I just want a slightly different one here. So I can redistribute my hours. Say there's a typo here, there's another S. I can modify these narratives, and I can save these changes. And now I have 2 entries. I have all of my totals and math. So I'm clearly seeing what's happening. Obviously, an entry was created because we just split one. So I'm seeing my statistics dynamically. Let me show you a few other ones. Travel time. This is an interesting one. What's going on? Travel should be billed at half the rate, right? This is a really big problem. So what firms can do is also customize what fields in Hercules are editable or not. In this case, I'm allowed to edit this, and I can just fix it directly. I didn't actually set who approved it, so it's going to stay red until I fix that. But other firms could also choose to not allow the rate to be edited, and instead, someone can leave a comment for the billing team to make this change in the backend, fix rate to 1/2, right? So it's very flexible for the different types of workflow I want to do. I will take a pause here and take any questions from you.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have any questions. I mean, what I see here is the real value of this stage and how that can really then reduce the time required for the pre-bill review rather significantly, I would imagine.
For sure. The business impact of flexible workflows that distribute this compliance load from the start is huge. Partners are actually able to turn around pre-bill review 2 times faster because a lot of this compliance review happens. Of course, partners still want to take their time to do write-downs, to review the bill, but they shouldn't be carrying the burden of OCG compliance or compliance with internal guidelines. The other benefit as an associate, for example, is I have the direct feedback loop. If a partner kept fixing my mistakes 30 days later after I submitted that entry and I never heard about it, how am I going to improve? Every month I'm creating the workload for that partner with additional issues. This way, the feedback loop is tighter. The timekeepers are essentially, junior timekeepers are getting partner track education. If I work with 3-4 different partners as an associate, and they all have different preferences, it's very hard to manually keep track of that. What Hercules allows you to do is enforce all of those rules depending on the matter that that partner is responsible for, and really achieve it with ease, and also involve support staff, right? Legal assistants can just as easily fix a lot of these mistakes. And we definitely see that kind of pre-scrub workflow where either billing compliance teams or legal assistants will do a part of this and then click to notify the timekeeper to finish the rest. Awesome. So because of the operational efficiencies, our clients are easily able to send a bill out before the end of the month, whereas the industry average is 47 days to bill. And when it comes to collection, we shave off a substantial amount of time compared to the industry average of 64 days. Of course, more compliant bills going out faster. Naturally, you get paid faster and have less headaches with lengthy appeals. And lastly, when it comes to the partner experience of the pre-bill review, if these issues weren't already fixed, the partner still now has the same exact experience. They can easily apply the fixes. They can continue to modify anything in terms of write downs, have the ability to transfer to a different matter, and the full breadth of the types of things they're used to in a pre-bill editing workflow, they're able to do here, such as split, dismiss, merge, and add anything else. It's the same experience we saw for timekeepers. All of the AI rules have the reasoning and all of the really important pieces of guiding them as a coach. So I'll summarize, Bob, and we can see if there are any questions remaining. Hercules AI brings a revolutionary approach and shift to legal billing compliance because we offer an end-to-end AI-powered solution that remains entirely in the firm's security perimeter. The business impact is substantial. Some of our clients are seeing over 20x return on their investment. And the platform's ability to review WIP before pre-bill accelerates the entire work-to-cash cycle, reduces the deductions, time to bill, and time to collect. As you've seen from the intuitive user experience, AI-generated fixed recommendations have enabled even the most technology-averse timekeepers to adopt the system with very minimal training, saving them significant amount of time. And whereas other billing compliance solutions have relied on manual if-then logic for rules that only result in warnings or errors, Hercules handles the entire process from start to finish with the power of AI. Broadly speaking, for firms looking to optimize revenue and work-to-cash cycles while still maintaining data security, Hercules AI is the proven solution used by law firms today.
Mariam, thanks a lot. Just a real quick question in terms of deployment. I mean, how are you seeing firms deploy this? Are they kind of rolling it out kind of across the firm when they first start using it, or are they testing it out a little bit with different practice groups or different billing groups or something like that? Or what have you seen?
Yeah, that's a great question. So pilots tend to involve different kinds of user groups. So for the WIP review, you might have the most problematic timekeepers, the ones who are causing a lot of headache and edits for partners. And then the practice groups that tend to gravitate really quickly to Hercules tend to be the ones who are struggling today in traditional paperless billing solutions, like the IP group, right? Because what we were reviewing was the entire client level instead of matter by matter. We give that flexibility, and that's highly desired.
Well, Mariam, thanks so much. Really appreciate your telling us all about Hercules AI, and this has been a really interesting presentation. Thanks for doing it. Good to see you.
My pleasure. Thanks.
That's it for this episode of How It Works. Thanks for joining us. You can find the full series at directory.lawnext.com under the Resources tab, or on YouTube. Just search for How It Works there. This is Bob Ambrogi. Thanks for being with us.